Hello and welcome to Archaeologists Anonymous. I am your host Sean Silvia, and today's topic is the sarcophagi of Helen and Constantina, two of Rome's most famous imperial women. Alright, so first we're going to talk about the symbolism on the sarcophagi. What does it mean? What are the implications? And then in the second part we're going to talk about what that tells us about the experience of women in the royal family, elite women in Rome. So, let's get started. Today, the sarcophagi are in the Hall of the Greek Cross in the amazing Vatican Museum. You can see that they're just facing each other in that frame. They're the dark red boxes on either side. Okay, so before we start talking about their sarcophagi, let's find out more about who these women are, or who people claim these women are. So, Constantina was the eldest daughter of Emperor Constantine. She died in 354 AD. She supposedly converted her husband Gallicanus to Christianity, and we have sources that describe her as a virgin addicted to Christianity. We'll find out later if that's actually true. And then we have Helen, or Saint Helen, as some people know her. She was Emperor Constantine's mother. She died over 2 decades before Constantina, in around 330 AD. She built a lot of churches, went on a famous pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and brought back a bunch of relics from the east. Constantina's sarcophagus was moved to the Vatican Museum from Santa Costanza in 1791, and Helen's sarcophagus was moved there from a mausoleum on the Via Labicana in also the 18th century. Okay, let's get into these sarcophagi. So these sarcophagi are made of red Egyptian porphyry, which was one of, if not the most prized material in Rome. It was actually so precious a material that Emperor Diocletian made it exclusive to the imperial family by law. He banned anyone else from using it. And of course, when you ban a material and make it exclusive to the royal family, that only makes it that more rare, precious, and impressive. Okay, so it was made of this incredibly bougie material. And of course, I'd just like to note that these were originally intended for a mausoleum, not the Vatican Museum, obviously. So, Constantina's design. We've got some garlands, some grapevines, some acanthus scrolls, some cupids treading grapes. We got 2 peacocks and a ram on there. There's some festoons, there's some masks. There's a lot of stuff going on there. So she's kind of got this party sarcophagus. Now, on to Helen's sarcophagus. It has some Roman soldiers on horseback sort of dominating these barbarian prisoners. The lid has cupids and victory garlands, and it's got 2 docile lions on either side. So Helen's got this sort of picture of war, of, Rome the Conqueror on her sarcophagus. Personally, I'd rather sort of party in Constantina's sarcophagus than go to war with Helen's sarcophagus, but that's just me. So you might already be saying to yourself, whoa, this does not sound like the Constantina and Helen you told me about in the beginning, these sort of very Christian women devoted to, this peace-loving religion. And you might go, where are the crosses? There's no sign of Christianity on there at all. Where are the doves? Where are any of these traditional Christian symbols? They're not there. Given that the sarcophagus designs are not Christian, what does this mean for the agency of these imperial Roman women? Did they have the right to decide how they were remembered? And in ancient Rome, deciding how you remembered was an incredibly important right. Households had altars set up to the devotion of the family gods and the ancestors. The way you were remembered was an incredibly central part of people's day-to-day lives in their houses and the way they saw the world. According to everyone's favorite guides of Rome, Helen built her own mausoleum, and Constantina built her mausoleum, which also had the sarcophagus of her sister. So it seems like the women had some amount of agency in building their mausoleums, but if you look at the mausoleums themselves, they're not Christian either. Let's look at Santa Costanza, where Constantina's sarcophagus is. You can see that there's a lot more of this sort of grapes, festoonery, that sort of symbolism, and this has to do with Bacchus, or as the Greeks know him, Dionysus. So Constantina's got all this Bacchic symbolism. We actually think that that's Bacchus himself right there. So, if she was Christian, Why did she have pagan gods all over her mausoleum and sarcophagus? Some scholars have tried to argue that all this Bacchic imagery is somehow Christian. They're like, the grapes show up in the Bible. There's, famous stories about grapes as a symbol, but I don't really buy it. Like, there's cupids everywhere. It's classic pagan symbolism. And Helen's sarcophagus, at least in the world of ancient Rome, with this war scene, is a lot more fitting for a male occupant. That's the way male sarcophagi were supposed to look. So, again, none of this accords with their supposedly Christian nature. So, what's going on here? Now, there's some scholarly debate about all of this, but Constantina seems to have not really been that Christian. There's evidence that she may have started out pro-Christian, but did not remain that. And in fact, she later married a staunch anti-Christian man as her second husband, so... And a lot of what we're told about these women is through hagiography, which is writings on the lives of saints. These kind of have a loose relationship with the truth. The point of hagiographies was not to tell a, point-by-point account of what actually happened. The point of hagiography was to, tell a moral message. And a lot of what is attributed to these women, pilgrimage, converting their husband, vows of chastity, these are classic hagiographical tropes that authors would sort of insert into the actual history. So we can't really be sure what these women thought of Christianity. What are archaeologists supposed to do with this? How are we supposed to interpret the sarcophagi? So it seems that either these women were Christian and given these pagan burials without their consent, or they were pagan but, completely Christianized by these hagiographies. So either way, they're not really remembered how they wanted to be. I think, however, that this is a false binary, a false dichotomy. I think that it's possible that Helen and Constantina's view of Christianity was a bit different from how we see it today, and maybe how the hagiographers saw it back then. What did Christianity mean to these people? Was Christ just another god in a world where many gods was the standard belief? Did they think that having these pagan burials would make them more likely to be remembered in a generally pagan Rome, because Rome was still majority pagan at that point? Did they think that it would be too sort of politically controversial to be buried as Christians sort of in the middle of the city? They'd rather not try and rustle feathers with a non-pagan monument. There's a lot going on here that makes this very difficult to examine. On the one hand, there's the possibility that these women were de-empowered by being given these pagan sarcophagi. There's a theory that Helen was given that sarcophagus because it was actually intended for a male family member, and it was just sort of sitting around and they didn't want to make a new one for her, so they were like, yeah, take this sarcophagus, which is pretty de-empowering. They're not going to make a new one for this, empress. And, it would be de-empowering to be given a pagan burial if you're Christian. But it could also be a story of empowerment. These women surveying the political landscape and deciding what's best. Are these women, having unorthodox beliefs about Christianity or attitudes, or deciding to stay pagan even though Constantine converted officially to Christianity? So there's a lot of room for female freedom as well as oppression in these sarcophagi, which is what makes them so very interesting to me. Okay, so now I'm taking the bold step of trying to apply this sarcophagi to the world of women in Rome as a whole. Potential thread number 1. Hagiography as standardizing women's experience to a norm set by men. Like we were just talking about, their attitudes towards Christianity might have been complex, might not have been what the male clergy thought about Christianity. And so when these male clerics write these hagiographies, it's sort of a standardization of the female Christian's experience. This is how they think that a holy female Christian should act. And it doesn't perfectly represent how these complex and individual women acted themselves. Another thread is the lesser priority of women in imperial commissions. There's that possibility that Helen was sort of given the dregs of imperial commissions. It's like, take that war sarcophagus. It's not traditionally female, but, no one's using it right now, and we don't want to make a new one. It sheds an interesting light on the possible world of women as second priority when the imperial house was making art and sarcophagi and things like that. So, that is the sarcophagi of Constantina and Helena. Very interesting, very complex, so I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Please watch another video, like and subscribe. I've been Sean Silvia of Archaeologists Anonymous.
They have built her own sarcophagus, or not. Either way, they got a pagan box, red blood.